Hello and welcome to the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra Tuesday Talk. I'm Judy Zorn and I'm delighted that you have joined us again this week for our chat with Grace Olson. Grace, nice to have you here.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this.
Grace plays flute in the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra. And how long have you been with the orchestra?
You know, I know I did some substitute appearances, but I think I joined in about 2010.
Okay, so 10 years,
yeah.
Probably about, that's quite a long time. But we'll touch back a little bit more on that. And Grace is originally from Michigan, grew up downstate, and as we're discovering with many of the GLCO musicians, Grace first picked up the flute when she was in elementary school or middle school in the music program that they had through the schools. And tell us a little bit how you got interested or why you started with the flute.
Well, I really didn't have a lot of exposure to music. Well, I should say my brother introduced me to music. He was a percussionist, and every Saturday when my mother went grocery shopping, he would put on the stereo Beethoven, Mozart, full blast. And he would sit me on his lap, because he was about 12 years older than I was, sit me on his lap and talk to me about the instruments, talk to me about the composer, and that really did stick with me.
My goodness,
yes.
How wonderful of him to do that. Now, where did he get all of that interest and background?
Other than being a percussionist in band, I don't really know where he picked up on his love of music. But that, I think, was my earliest exposure to it. And then, of course, when it came time to pick an instrument, my best friend, Annie, played flute. And so that's what I tried and fell in love with it. And so it was no doubt what I was going to play.
Yeah, and you play so well, so it has really stuck with you. You played then all the way through high school and into college. Now, when you were in high school, you were not in a high school that had an orchestra, so you were playing in band.
In band, yeah. Okay. Concert band, marching band. Yeah,
right.
But still loving it. So.
And then you went to Western. And there you had some exposure, your first exposure to playing in an orchestra, is that right?
Yes, you know, I believe it was probably my senior year that I auditioned and got the spot of piccolo. And it was just an amazing feeling to me to sit in a room surrounded by stringed instruments, totally different experience than band. And I could feel it. I mean, I don't think unless you're in an orchestra, you can understand, you can literally feel it through your body. And I was just in awe. And kind of a funny sideline to Western Michigan University, I studied with Charles Osborne. And Charles Osborne would always talk about Bonita Ben, who is the principal flutist in GLCO.
Right.
She was about, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 years ahead of me, so I did not know her. Okay. But she had a legacy at Western Michigan University. And then and when I moved up north, and a couple flutists were looking for some members to join a flute choir. And I got a phone call from Bonita Ben, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. You know, so
it's a small world, isn't it?
So what, you know, that was just a real pleasure. And then of course to sit next to her.
And for 10 years, you've been sitting next to her, making beautiful music in the flute section. My goodness sakes. So did you play in other orchestras then when you were in Kalamazoo too? So
there was a group of us that were able to drive down to the St. Joseph area, to the Southwest Michigan Orchestra. And what a great opportunity as a student to have that first professional playing opportunity. And so I did that when I was at Western, and then once getting married, you know, following my husband across state, I was able to join Macomb Symphony and the Lake St. Clair Symphony Orchestra.
And those are all good organizations and exciting music, and exciting to be part of those orchestras too. You mentioned that you were traveling quite a bit throughout the state because of your husband and his job, and ultimately you ended up here in Gaylord.
Yeah, my husband's job brought us up here, and once we got the children in school and learned, coming up north, thinking initially, like I'm sure many of us thought, that being in northern Michigan there would not be a lot of musical talent and activities, and of course we're so surprised as we started to hear about people and reach out, and we got involved in all the musical activities in Gaylord, and many years speaking to friends that were in GLCO and thinking, oh, I would love to have that opportunity. And one of my friends, Kathy Volke, said, well, just wait, an opportunity might open it up. And sure enough, it eventually did, and then having that connection with Bonita at that point.
Sure.
So definitely a blessing.
Well, your degree from Western is in music therapy, and you have had some experience with that, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with community mental health in Gaylord.
Yeah, so I've been employed with community mental health for about 22 years, and was not able to get a position as a music therapist because that's often reserved for maybe the bigger cities, Traverse City or downstate.
Sure.
So I have been working with individuals, adults with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and in addition to working with them on a daily basis on just the daily living skills, I would bring them to my music studio downtown, and we would have music together then. And just the amazing effects of music, no matter what your level of abilities or intellect. As we all know, music definitely affects us. And to have somebody who is sitting in a wheelchair with their arms curled all day long, but you roll them up to a piano, and ever so slowly, they will stretch, they will reach out until they can just drop their hands, and then
make that
the look
sound
on their face when they hear that just lights them up. Or an individual that will not have a conversation, but boy, they can sing every word to their favorite songs.
My goodness.
So that's
well, and with everything that we've all been through in the last year with COVID, certainly we all understand the power of music, whatever kind of music it is that you gravitate to. It's certainly amazing. You touched on a Gaylord community music school.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that. You are an integral part of that, and in fact, you have quite a robust studio.
We do. We're right downtown Gaylord, and we've been, I think, going for maybe about 10 years now, and founded by some of the musicians from GLCO. Myself, Joanna Van Isinga, and her husband, Jim Van Isinga. We initially started it, we're all graduates of Western Michigan University with that same mindset and that same dedication. Kathy Volke, who plays viola, she started it with us also. And offering all music lessons for flute, piano, voice, all the stringed instruments. And then we brought in 2 graduates of MSU who do young groups for infant all the way up to about 5 years of age, and of course with their parents, movement and music, and just trying to catch them from that young age. And both of those young ladies are also music therapists, and so they do some private therapy sessions also.
Well, you have an incredibly active life. You have a full-time job with community mental health. You have an active studio where you're giving private lessons, but you also play in a number of groups around the wider Gaylord area. Tell us where you're all performing and who you're performing with.
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, there was a time that my oldest daughter would, say, well, Mom is not home. She must be in a rehearsal. So, and I've slowed down a little bit through the years, but you know, Gaylord has some wonderful groups. We have the Gaylord Community Band, Gaylord Orchestra. I'm involved in the Pit Orchestra for their summer theater group. We have, of course, with our group of flutists in Northern Michigan, the Northwest Michigan Flute Choir. For a while I was in Encore Winds. And so, of course,
Well,
Great Lakes Chamber.
Sure, and GLCO, you know, I hear from so many people, and I think we all do, you know, sometimes people move up here because it's so beautiful and this is where they really want to be or want to retire. And then, as you just said, oh my goodness, they really don't have to give up too much of an active arts life, arts and culture life, because there is so much going on here, and it is just enriching the whole community so much, and we're so happy to be a vital part of that here with Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra. You know, I do want to share something else with our listening audience, Grace, and that is, I'll never forget getting notice way back last March that you had come down with COVID. And very early on in this whole COVID scenario that we have lived through now for almost a year, and in fact, you became very, very sick with that, didn't you?
Yes, I mean, fortunately I was able to stay home and take care of myself. My husband was off kind of cleaning and preparing his parents' house for sale. And so the minute I knew or even suspected I had this, I told him, you know, stay away. I'm intelligent. I will know if I need to reach out for help. But yeah, it was very, very new. I think Otsego County was less than 10 people. And of course it was in the news, and being I think a quite healthy person to all of a sudden have a symptom,
Right.
You know, a high fever.
Come out of nowhere.
Yes, yeah, and definitely lung pain. It's like, yeah, this is unusual. And so of course my biggest concern was breathing in my lungs. So
As a musician, of
Yes,
course, and I know you struggled with it for a while, but here you are. You're looking fabulous, and have come through that, and we're so thankful and so glad. And as an orchestra family, we were all there with you and thinking about you and praying for you, and we're so glad that you're.
And that did make a big difference, you know, hearing from you and other people calling and emailing me, and especially because of the isolation. You know, it was about 3 weeks where I was not seeing anybody,
including your husband,
including my husband.
Yeah.
And having people reach out. So
yeah. Well, we're delighted that you could join us today, and that you are with the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra in addition to all the many other organizations you perform with. We are looking forward to a spring season, if that's going to be possible, possibly an April concert and a June concert. And of course, we know that number one is health and safety, not only of you, of our musicians, but also of our audience members. So we just have to say, stay tuned. You will hear things on our website and see things on our website, I mean, about upcoming performances. And we so look forward to you performing with us. We just finished a little performance that we recorded, which of course was strings only. So hopefully by April and June, we'll be able to have some woodwinds and winds and flutes and more people of the orchestra on stage.
Oh yes, that will, and we have all talked about that. What a joyful occasion that is going to be, to see each other again and to make music again. And yeah, it's definitely been a loss for audience members as well as us as performers.
Yes, exactly. I want to thank you all for joining us today and for listening in, getting to know Grace a little bit better. We see her on stage, and we've seen her on the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra stage for the past 10 years. So it's nice to have a little bit of a peek into how much she not only contributes in the music world in our wider community, but also in the community in Gaylord in terms of the work you do with disabled individuals and your mental health work that you do there. So again, I want to thank you for all of the support that you give to the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.